Hey, what is up, everybody? Welcome to the Guilty as Charged podcast. My name is Steven, and I am the host. And joining me, as always, is my good friend Tyler. Tyler, what's up, man? How are you doing tonight?
Doing very well because as I was watching the Eagles demolish the Chiefs in the Super Bowl, which was nice to see. Great game. I don't care about the score. The outcome and all that was wonderful because Chiefs lost, and that made me feel good. But as I was watching the game and I saw everybody start to make this really big shift towards wanting defensive linemen, like, wow, the Chargers should just go get every defensive lineman. I remembered that somebody did a mock draft where we took 2 defensive linemen in the first 2 rounds, and that wasn't everybody's cup of tea at the time. Hey, never wrong, just early.
Yeah, never wrong, just early. As Thomas points out, Daniel Popper did not get that memo, unfortunately. But yeah, I had a wonderful time on Sunday watching that Super Bowl. I was very pessimistic, obviously thinking the Chiefs were going to win. And they lost in the most beautiful fashion I possibly could have imagined. The fact that the Eagles backups got into this game is crazy. I can't remember the last time I watched a Super Bowl where the backups were intentionally put in without injury. So it was great. I loved watching it. Credit to Vic Fangio and the Eagles defense, Howie Roseman for building up an absolute juggernaut of a roster. You have family ties to the Eagles. I have family ties to the Eagles. Obviously, Alex Insdorf has ties to the Eagles. So we're adjacent to that team, I guess. And there's going to be a couple Eagles players mentioned on this show tonight. So good for them. I'm glad that they ended the three-peat. I would have absolutely hated for this specific Chiefs team to be the team that went 3 in a row because I never really felt like they were actually a Super Bowl winning team. It just felt like they made fewer mistakes than everybody else, and that's why they were playing in that game.
Yeah.
So it was a great time. I am a huge Kendrick Lamar fan, so I loved watching the halftime show. I know he's not everybody's cup of tea. I know that performance was not everybody's cup of tea. I'm not here to talk about that, but I enjoyed it. Food was great. So Super Bowl Sunday for me was fantastic. I had a great time.
Yeah, no complaints there. Although I feel like this was the first year I didn't love the commercials or didn't find many commercials that I really liked. I don't know how much they paid Seal to do that Mountain Dew commercial. It was not enough. That was some cursed nightmare fuel on my screen. But otherwise, yeah, very, very nice time. Prize Picks didn't go super hot because I didn't think the Chiefs would be that bad.
None of my Chiefs picks hit except for the free one.
Yeah, and he barely cleared that one, man. Mahomes barely cleared the 0.5 yards, man. He was at like 24 yards at one point through most of the game. So yeah, it was fun. My mom, obviously, like from Philly, had a ton of fun watching this game.
Yeah, the commercials. Damage points out the Harrison Ford one was good with Jeep. It's a shame Jeeps are not good cars, but it's okay. I think the Nike commercial with all the women's athletes was good. There were a few other ones that were good, but I mean, there used to be the Super Bowl commercial slate used to be amazing. Thomas points out the Budweiser commercial. I don't drink beer, so I don't have any real attachment to Budweiser, but those ones are always fun. But the commercials were not great. There's a certain health and wellness company that is getting absolutely roasted because they were promoting a weight loss drug without advertising that there are certain side effects and that their weight loss drug is not even FDA certified. So they spent $30 million on a Super Bowl commercial and didn't even verify their product. So that's never a good business model to follow.
Man, was that the Hims and Hers?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Well, yeah. A lot of questions about that commercial. Didn't realize all that.
Yeah, their product is basically side effects up the wazoo Ozempic. So do not recommend from what I read online.
Yeah.
I'm not a doctor, but what I read online it was not great. So
yeah.
Yeah. All right. Like I mentioned, some Eagles defensive linemen are going to be mentioned on today's show. Looking at the draft and looking at free agency, maybe not so much edge rusher at free agency, but when it comes to defensive linemen in general, in this offseason, the Chargers are in such a great spot to add talent. And it can come in a variety of ways, and we'll get to some of those things But this is a great defensive tackle free agency group. I think we're all kind of on the same page that we all want Khalil back. But if he does decide to leave, they again have a great edge rusher draft. And there are some interesting pieces in free agency, which will. So that is what we are going to do today. Free agent edge rushers and defensive linemen. Since there's not a ton of edge rushers, we decided to kind of make this into one specific show. And I'm excited to see how this goes. But like I said, the more that I dive into this draft class and the free agency class, there's no excuse for the Chargers not to add some significant upgrades. I mean, you showed a couple of clips on Twitter of like defensive tackle 34, like a nose tackle cooking offensive tackles with a spin move. This draft class continues to just get crazier and crazier in the best way possible. So it's great news for the Chargers, who don't necessarily need to spend big, but they need to add talent to the room. They need to get younger to the room. And it seems like they're going to have a variety of ways they can do that this year.
Yeah, which is really cool. You can go top end, first round, or spend money in free agency, not as much at edge rusher, or you could get someone in the first round of the draft, or you could get them in the second round of the draft or the third. So it's just, you could buy low on an individual. There's so many different routes for them to go. And they really had a great defensive line interior group with, I mean, how much were they spending? $8 million, maybe?
Maybe not even that much, dude.
Like a million for Puna,
$1 million for
Tart, for Tart practically at the end there.
I think it was like 4 for Fox.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, Morgan Fox. That was the big expenditure for them. They can invest quite a bit more in this line this year.
Yeah, 100%. Before we get there, of course, Tyler mentioned Prize Picks. It wasn't a great Super Bowl Prize Picks for me. The good news for Prize Picks is that if you build a lineup of 5, you can still hit. If you hit 3, you could still win some money. So I won, I think it was $28 on my selection for Sunday. So I'll take it. Shout out to Saquon Barkley. Shout out to Devontae Smith. And of course, Mr. Jalen Hurts. So I was not expecting him to run for 75 yards or whatever. But it was an easy selection for me to take the more on that. And hopefully you guys were able to take advantage. So no more football for the next 5 months, whatever it is. I think it's 200 days until the next NFL season starts. But Prize Picks obviously has you covered for the NBA, for the National Hockey League, for Major League Baseball. I know we got a bunch of baseball fans in the chat here. So Prize Picks can have you covered in any variety of sports. You just have to pick a few players, select more or less on a given stat, build your lineup, and win minute. It really is so simple, so user-friendly. We've loved using them. You can go to prizepicks.com/guilty, code guilty, to support the show and yourselves. Again, that is prizepicks.com/guilty, code guilty at checkout. All right, let's dive into the defensive linemen here. Again, edge rushers and defensive tackles will be mentioned tonight. Mostly an emphasis on interior defensive linemen, but we are combining the two. Again, we're doing for each of these shows a tier 1 and tier 2 and etc. And the top of the market game changers is where we are going to start. And there was only one receiver, but this year there are 2 defensive tackles, and one of them is the aforementioned Philadelphia Eagles, Milton Williams, who had himself a day in the Super Bowl, had himself a playoff run, and had himself a great season. So to me, the more I have thought about this, I actually think that Milton is my number 1 defensive target. You have on here 99th percentile athletic ability. Size definitely checks out more to what the Chargers, I think, have traditionally looked for. He was 6th in ESPN's pass rush win rate. He was 2nd in PFF's pass rush productivity. He was 6th in PFF's wins above replacement. The pass rush ability here is outstanding. And this is a guy who still is very, very young. He still has his best football ahead of him. And I think the more you look at the numbers, the more you look at the play style, I think Milton Williams is a perfect fit for where the Chargers need to get to from a pass rush standpoint. There are definitely some concerns with the run defense, which we can get to. But if you want to just crank up your interior pass rush, I think Milton Williams has to be your priority number 1 in terms of veterans, in terms of draft. I think this guy can really just change your defensive ceiling And I think he showed that this against the Kansas City Chiefs in the Super Bowl.
Yeah, which kind of matters. I think when you watch the guy destroy the Chiefs, you go, yeah, that one. I want that one on the Chargers. We face the Chiefs twice a year, so
Yeah.
go get that one. Milton Williams, really intriguing, fun prospect, and was ended up being selected by them, and then turned out to be a pretty good player. So things worked out well for him, and I'm excited to see what he does in the future. But yeah, if you want to crank up your pass rush, this is your guy. This is your number one guy. Will be expensive. We'll see. PFF does have Osa projected higher in terms of APY. Does that change after that giant Super Bowl that he just had? And he went, hey, like I just won a championship and was a big part of that. I think he could end up being the highest paid guy in free agency, and deservedly so. The run stop rate, like for him to be 77th out of 79 in run stop rate is not great. With that said, while Minter does usually prefer the run first defending guys, I guess, they could still, with this contract, bring back Ford and Tart, no problem. They won't, if this is what they pay Williams, they can bring back Ford and Tart, no problem, or at least Ford or whatever. And they don't have to lose what they do in the run game by getting Milton Williams. They're not a bad run defense all of a sudden because of Milton Williams, because they can work with the rest of their defensive line. So even if you bring him in and like, this is I'm going to go get, 60, 70 pressures or something like that ridiculous this year, maybe. You still have other guys around him that can work with the run game.
Yeah, and I just looked this up. His run stop rate this past season was 3 point something percent. It was 11% in 2023. So there is some evidence that he can play the run. And I don't know, maybe this was just a different kind of year, but I think he has the skill set. I think he has the ability. I'm not going to sit here and pretend to watch a ton of Eagles tape, but one of the things I liked about him as a prospect was his run defense. So I think the ability is there. I think maybe just all of the dots did not align for him this year when it came to that regard.
Okay, and you think that's maybe a Vic Fangio thing, like a different scheme, like he did join him in 2024. You have a new defensive coordinator, and you kind of play things differently.
Yeah, you're doing more two gapping things versus. Oh, who was their defensive coordinator in 2022? I know it ended up being Patricia, which is so funny.
It wasn't. Oh, it was. Oh gosh. Oh, Desai? No.
Desai. Sean Desai. Yeah.
Oh, thank God.
Yeah.
Arguing I didn't know that.
I don't know. I mean, Sean Desai, he is kind of a Fangio disciple. So I don't know. I'll be if the Chargers sign him, which I don't know if he will. The Eagles, as we put on here, they love their homegrown defensive linemen. It's the reason why they have been to 3 Super Bowls in the last 8 years. Is their defensive line has always been amazing.
Mm-hmm.
If he does sign with the Chargers, that would be like priority number 1 for me. Is like, okay, what happened here? How do you go from 11% to 3%?
Yeah,
because that's a huge drop off, and I think that is something to be concerned about.
Yeah, but otherwise, like all gas, pass rush, you completely change. I don't know what the highest number of pressures the Chargers have had from a defensive lineman has been, but I don't think it cleared 50. I think Morgan Fox maybe a couple of years ago was around 40 something. Well, that might have been their best effort.
Let's look and find out.
I'm very happy for the Chargers to pay for any kind of tier where you can jump into 50, 60 pressures.
Yeah, you feel like 2022 is probably Morgan Fox's best season, yeah?
Yes.
Okay. If PFF will load this for me, we might have to come back to this. But to wrap this up, you mentioned the APY for those wondering, for our audio audience. Pro Football Focus does project him at $21 million APY. That's a hefty contract. I think that could have gone up, like you mentioned, after his dominant postseason run. So I do think that could be closer to 22, 23.
Yeah.
We'll see. But the numbers are all outstanding, man. Like counting stats, advanced numbers, whatever you want to look for. He's an awesome player.
Yeah. Some people in the chat are pointing out though, like, and as you wrote here, the Eagles love their homegrown guys. Could very well just return to the Eagles, but someone's going to have to leave. It's a question of who, and Williams will be the most expensive.
Yeah, they don't have a ton of cap space. They have an owner who is willing to pay up for a lot of cash, and they do a ton of restructures. But they do have a lot of key free agents, and Howie Roseman is one known to, value some compensatory picks as well. So we'll see what happens. I think there is a decent chance that he, at minimum, wants to test the market, and I think this number could significantly go up if he does hit the market. So will be interesting to see where that happens going forward.
Yeah. Let's see. Well, the Chargers leader last year was Morgan Fox with 32 pressures, which 60 sounds better.
60 does sound better. Fox had 39 in 2022. Good season, but very different.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind seeing a Chargers defensive lineman be that good.
Yeah. You want to take Osa here next?
Yeah, absolutely. So I don't. It's kind of not pick your flavor, because Osa is not like a run stopping defensive tackle either. This is definitely a guy who is more of a pass rusher, less productive, less, I think, efficient than Milton Williams, but slightly better run defender. So I think that does help him out here. Maybe be a better overall free agent. I think the question here, because the money's about the same as 21.5 mil APY. The question with this team is, does someone who is 282 pounds fit what they want? Now it's like, oh, well, why just go get a good player? Like I totally get that. Like Chargers getting good players. The Chargers aren't a bad defense because Osa's on the team. But might they want to go with someone with a bit more size, like Milton Williams, who I think is 290 something?
Yeah, I think he's closer to 300, but
yeah. So not that the Chargers have gone for guys that are only big, giant, long arm, tall behemoths. Like Puna Ford is not a big guy, but he's over 300 pounds, and that in particular does make a difference. And so again, with Osa being 282. Is that where they want to invest their money, or do they want to go somewhere else? So great player, great pass rusher, slightly better run defender, just a bit more undersized relative to what they're used to. But I wouldn't really be bummed if they paid him 21 million either.
Just to wrap it up, Morgan Fox's best season in 2022 was 40 pressures if you count the playoff game, 7 sacks, 5 hits. Corey Leggett's best season after that was 39 pressures, 8 sacks, and 6 quarterback hits, and that was in 2015. So not a great track record of interior pass rushers, unfortunately.
No. Had some good players we like, but never the great ones that we've seen throughout the league, and there's just too many.
Yeah, there's too many. But I think, you hit the nail on the head with Osa. I think his run defense is a little bit higher. The fit is a little bit more curious because Milton does have some experience with the two gapping. The Eagles kind of do a two gap shoot hybrid system over the last couple of years, is my understanding. Whereas the Cowboys, they have basically been a gap shooting defense. And so that allows Osa to kind of overcompensate for the lack of size. Being 282 as a defensive tackle, like you mentioned, isn't high end weight, but because he's so quick and fast off the ball, he can create some splash plays that way as a runner defender. But again, you're mostly paying Osa for his pass rush productivity and his ability to potentially hit a higher ceiling going forward. So the numbers here are very, very good. We mentioned Osa as like a dream trade candidate because the Cowboys just are in this weird state where they're not really paying anybody, but at the same time, they won't pay anybody. There were reports that they've had like internal conversations to trade Micah Parsons, which is insane to me. So they're just a conundrum. Like I have no idea what to make of the Dallas Cowboys. Should they bring Osa back? Yeah, 100%. You should not let a player like this leave in free agency when you hypothetically can afford him. But I think there's a very good chance he hits the market. And I think there's a very good chance that he would want to return back to LA, where he is obviously very familiar from his days in college, and play with a great coaching staff who probably recruited him. I don't know for sure, but I'm pretty confident that Jim Harbaugh would have recruited a defensive tackle like this kind of player. And I don't know, man. Like I think the fit is just fantastic here for either of these two defensive pass rushers.
Yeah, I agree. I'm trying to look at that recruiting profile. So only a 3-star recruit from the
Wow.
West Coast. Had very. Let's see. He had an offer from UCLA, and that was it.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. So interest from Oregon, Oregon State, USC. Only an offer from UCLA. Go
Wow.
figure.
Good for him, man.
Yeah.
He's about to make some life-changing money then.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
So these two are definitely the headliners. These two, I think,
Yeah.
would classify as transforming your pass rush. And again, we just pointed out not a great history of interior defensive line production from a
Mm-hmm.
pass rush standpoint. Um, just thinking about like bringing Puna back and signing one of these two,
Mm-hmm.
and there's a ton of potential there.
Yeah, and then go ham in the draft and get another couple guys if you want. Are you surprised their APY is only it's a big APY. Put them at like 10th or 11th in terms of defensive tackle contracts.
Yeah, I think that speaks to draft priors for both of these guys were
Mm,
later picks in the draft. They're not as impactful of run defenders as Chris Jones, Christian Wilkins, Namdi
yeah.
Madubuike, Lee McNeil, like that whole group, Quentin Williams. So I think to be, in that kind of wow, Dexter Lawrence is only at 22.5. My God. That might be the biggest bargain in the NFL, dude. Oh my gosh, 22.5 for Dexter Lawrence is crazy.
Mm,
So yeah, I think this is kind of a run defense thing. But when it comes to the pass rush, like they're right there. We just talked about Milton Williams being right there neck and neck with some of the best in the business. So
mhm.
I think the draft priors, the run defense, the size maybe is all kind of part of that.
Yeah. All right. Cool.
Next tier here, we do have the pricey starters. So again, good news for the Chargers. If these two guys return, if they are too pricey, for lack of a better word, you have some good alternatives here. And I think we'll pivot to the edge rusher room here first. But this
Mhm.
is Josh Sweat, another guy who had a awesome Super Bowl, 2.5 sacks, I believe, and really was potentially the best defensive player in that game. So he was not on a rookie contract. That is my mistake. He was on a second contract, so I forgot to update that. But his PFF projection is 3 years, $18 million APY. Again, pre Super Bowl, pre playoff run. So we'll see if that changes. And again, from when it comes to the Eagles, they love their homegrown defensive linemen. They have put a lot of time and energy into developing Josh Sweat. And so I think there's probably a better chance that Sweat returns than Milton Williams, personally, just because Brandon Graham is likely retiring. They paid Bryce Huff a ton of money, and he could not get on the field. Like they were playing Jalix Hunt over Bryce Huff in the
Mm,
playoffs. So I think they're going to emphasize bringing back Josh Sweat back because they have fewer reliable options at the edge. Whereas defensive tackle, you still have Jordan Davis, you still have Jalen Carter. Like you can probably stand to lose Milton Williams. Whereas if Josh Sweat leaves, you don't really have a edge rusher that you trust. I think Nolan Smith is very, very good, but Josh Sweat I think is kind of more important to what the Eagles need in terms of repeating and all that stuff.
yeah, I definitely think so. Fine with either of these guys, of course. Eagles, I'm sure, would love to have both. I would love to have both. But Josh Sweat, I think this would be your. You don't want him. I don't think they would make him your edge one. And if they did, then you'd probably drafting someone in the first round still, I think. But I think this is really your, hey, Joey, sorry, we got to cut you. And I think we pivot to another guy who's just been more available, more consistent, generally kind of some of the same production, but being on the field more gets him a little bit higher in that production. So like 68 pressures, 54 pressures, not one of these, Max Crosby, 110 pressure seasons or anything, but very, very consistent, strong player there. And 18 mil APY is pretty good. I don't know where that ends up putting him, but that's definitely not in the top 10 for edge rushers. I don't even know if it's the top 15. So I think if you're paying someone 18, I mean, these contracts sound enormous, but in terms of where they are ranked, I wouldn't mind it.
Edge 18 would be 18 million APY.
18. Wow. Mm.
So again, this could change, obviously, but
Totally.
I think to me, Josh Sweat is Khalil decides to go elsewhere, and you decide to just Joey Bosa's contract is not tenable, so let's go pay some other edge rusher, and I do think there is a decent chance that that happens. Khalil, I
Mm.
think is definitely going to have some options if he wants to go kind of ring chase. I think that is a scenario where he can go sign with the Buffalo Bills. And obviously, he went to college in Buffalo, and the Bills, should be looking to upgrade their pass rush. And so I think Khalil will have options if he wants to leave. And in that scenario, signing somebody like Josh Sweat would be a great, outcome after that. But like I said, I do think there is kind of a chance that he does return to the Eagles.
Okay, so let's work through that for a second because I am curious what the chat thinks, and then you're already kind of discussing it. So if Mac returns, so let's start with this. If Mac returns, and let's say they cut Joey Bosa, you still feel there's room for a defensive tackle like the two we just mentioned in terms of contract? Room, yes, like they have cap, but
yeah, that becomes a little tricky.
Mhm.
If Khalil signs at a contract like PFF projects, that is a little tricky. Now you can manipulate the cap and you can highly incentivize his contract, and you can do a lot of incentives and things like that. Oh, Josh Sweat was college teammates with Derwin. Interesting. I did not realize he went to Florida State. I should have looked at that. Shout out to Kobe in the chat there for that one. I think if Khalil is back and he signs at the top of his market, to me, it makes it a little tricky to pay an interior defensive lineman like Osa, but I think it's absolutely worth it. I think that's a scenario that the Chargers would explore. Unfortunately for the fans, that likely means not paying a high-end wide receiver. It likely means shopping a little bit more in the mid-tier offensive line grouping. But if you cut Joey Bosa, you free up that $25 million and you can just turn around and say, here you go, Milton Williams. So I think they can make it work.
Yeah.
But it does become a little bit more difficult if Khalil is back. And if they decide to keep Joey, then it's definitely not happening. Like there's no way you can do that. So that part is a little tricky, but I still think they can make it work.
Yeah, I think so too. I think they'll do kind of what they did last year, and they even spent a little bit on Dupree, who's still on the team. I think they'll carry two pretty pricey defensive linemen. At what positions, I don't know. But I think at least probably just one of each.
Yeah, I think this is we're talking defensive lineman, and Dark Samus comes in with a Jared Wilson center.
It's my favorite bit.
It's a great beat. It's a great bit, and I greatly appreciate the super chats there. But yeah, I think there is a world where you're paying two expensive defensive linemen. It just kind of depends who it is. So I think in a scenario where Khalil is back, I think they're probably getting their fourth edge rusher in the draft. But maybe they could convince some other guys later in the show to also come aboard.
Yeah, I agree. Next up is let's just pair another former Raider with Khalil Mack. Assuming Khalil Mack comes back, and potentially we'll see, you would invest quite a bit in your defensive line. I want to say, and hold on, I have it somewhere. Did Kuntz go to Buffalo?
He sure did.
Okay, there you go. Yes. So former Raiders, former Buffalo Bulls. Let's do it. Like let's just have the whole let's run it back with Buffalo Bulls on the defensive line. There's nothing about what he did in 2023 that makes me really hesitate about like showing what he can do. Like I've seen way too many Raiders games. I know what he can do. I was very impressed with what he could do. This is a big time gamble compared to someone like Sweat. And now considering their APY projections, I gotta imagine Sweat gets a significant bump over Kuntz. Like I can't imagine they're in the exact same APY, which is basically what they have them. So it was 8. Now this is not current; it's been a bit, but for Sweat it was 18 mil APY. Kuntz 18.75 mil APY. I don't know about that one, but this one is fascinating because you have the potential to buy low. And again, it's not low, but 18 mil, as you said, for Sweat was edge 18. Let's say Kuntz even goes a little bit lower than that or at that. You're paying edge 20, let's say, in terms of APY. If you think you've got the program to get this guy to be what he was and then take that step forward, I mean, you got a heck of a buy low on a player who could genuinely be a very, very, very good, very productive edge rusher. The issue is that he just missed the entire 2024 season with a knee injury.
Yeah.
And that 2023 season, before that was 2 years where he barely played. So it was barely playing. Great per play season. I think it was like 53 pressures, 8 sacks, but he only rushed the passer like 344 times. So the efficiency was awesome. And then he missed the entire 2024 season. It's a huge gamble that I'm fascinated if the Chargers would go for this one. There's a lot of players on here with injury histories. I'm very curious if they go for it. At this number though of 18.75, no, I don't think that I cannot imagine. At the same time though, that is, if he even goes a little bit lower, he could be edge 20 being paid. And you get him to 70 pressures a year, you're feeling pretty good.
Yeah, I think this, falls into potentially being a little too risky for Mr. Joe Ortiz because, I don't think it's lip service where he says that they're going to spend responsibly in free agency. And so 18.75, even on a 2-year contract like this would have the chance to hit you a good amount of compensatory pick potential because you're only doing a 2-year contract. You're still, betting on some higher end ceiling player here. So I think it makes sense for a lot of reasons. But that injury history does provide a lot of risk from this past season. Was it in an ACL?
I was looking and I never saw them specify. It was in practice a few days before the season started. And I don't recall them officially saying ACL, but it was a knee injury.
Yeah, because it was weird. There was I remember he didn't practice and then he practiced before the first Chargers game. And then he's out, and then he's having season-ending knee surgery. It was super weird.
Mm-hmm.
Let me see if Tashawn Reed or anybody reported on it.
Yeah, I don't know. But hey, any former Raiders that want to join
so Tashawn Reed just says season-ending injury. Doesn't ever say what kind of injury. Interesting.
Either way, season-ending knee is not great.
No. But if the Chargers do lose Khalil Mack, I think, Malcolm Kuntz does become potentially the best edge rusher chance on the market. And so in that scenario where you're potentially losing Mack, I think Malcolm Kuntz is probably where I would want to spend my money versus, heading into the next tier, which we'll get to in a second.
Yeah, and we can get to that group. So is that our last one? Yeah, okay. Last one on pricey starters.
Yeah, so starters on a budget. First one up here is another defensive tackle, interior defensive lineman, Mr. BJ Hill. His previous contract was 3 years, $10 million APY, which is going to be a theme on this in this group. This was kind of the year that this was happening. It was the same exact contract that Sebastian Joseph signed for the Chargers back in the day. And PFF essentially is running it back with a 2-year contract and a little boost of 10.25 APY. So we'll see what happens there, but I think 10.25 feels pretty fair for BJ Hill and the kind of player he is. Joe Burrow is pushing to keep the band back together in Cincinnati, making all of the ploys possible. He even threw in Mike Gesicki into that conversation. And the Bengals defensive line was horrific last year. Obviously, Trey Hendrickson led the league in sacks, and BJ Hill is a good player, but they was pretty much just the two of them. And so we'll see what happens there. I think there is a good chance that he decides to head for greener pastures on a better defense and a better situation. But at the end of the day, he seems to like Cincinnati, and maybe he decides to come back. So what you're getting in BJ Hill is probably a slight upgrade from Morgan Fox in the pass rushing department, but a significant upgrade in the run defense department from that kind of player. Yeah. So he's not your Puna Ford, tier tart, going to 2 gap, but at the same time, he is a very capable run defender, which I was actually pleasantly surprised to look at. He was 16th in run stop percentage this year, 18th in run defense grade. He's had above a 65 run defense grade in basically every season of his career, while also having legitimate pass rush history. His best season in 2023 was 42 pressures, 5 sacks, and 11 hits. So there's legit pass rush productivity here. There's legit run defense here, but he doesn't have the high end ceiling of a guy like Osa or Milton or so he's not going to elevate the Chargers into that tier. But I do think in 2025 he would be a step above what they got from Morgan Fox this past season, while also being a capable run defender.
Yeah, I think that's perfectly fine in a direction they could definitely go. Does not force you to go defensive tackle at 22. It doesn't. It seems like the Chargers might just miss out on maybe like your Kenneth Grant, Walter Nolan, and those guys. We'll see. Byron Murphy fell a little further than we thought. Johnny Newton, for different reasons, fell further than we thought. So
yeah,
possibly get one of those guys. But should you miss out, having BJ Hill already on the roster means you're set. Let's say Ford's back, feeling pretty good about your season. You can draft somebody, a couple of guys later on. BJ Hill is your starter for at least 1 year, potentially 2 years. Then when he's gone, then younger guys step up. So you can feel pretty good about your defensive line. It wouldn't be all world by any means, but it would be a solid group.
Yeah, hypothetically speaking, if you sign BJ Hill, you bring back Puna Ford, maybe that allows you to target more of like a Derek Harmon in the second round or a Darius Alexander in the second round, and that's your pass rusher of the future. And you can be comfortable with Puna, Tier Tart, and BJ Hill run defense, and then you get your situational pass rusher in the draft. I think you feel great about that. Maybe obviously not as good as signing a Milton Williams or an Oso Odigizua, but BJ Hill does a lot of things very, very well. He's not an elite player, but to me, this is very clearly the guy that I would target if Osa and Milton are back with their respective teams.
Yeah, another guy again, not an exact Morgan Fox replacement, and not exactly Jones either, or Hill, excuse me. But Levi darn it, I had it the whole time until just then. Levi Onwuzurike from the Detroit Lions.
There you go.
Again, another pass rusher specific guy, not as good as defending the run as Hill, but still, I don't know, fine, I guess. Has a bit of an injury history. You wrote here unsure of the stylistic and size fit. Is that more so the defense that because he's still like not a small guy. I think he's 290. Where was it?
Oh, is he? I thought I saw he was like 280.
I mean, he might have dropped weight. I have no idea. But coming out of college, he was 290. But for stylistic fit, is that more like just how Detroit runs things, or?
Yeah, the Lions are mostly a gap shooting team. And the Chargers do let their guys shoot gaps, but I don't know if he really is a guy who will like take on double teams and be able to set the line of scrimmage, as opposed to like he's just going to be quick off the ball. So Levi Onwuzurike, I almost had it, but there we go.
We'll get there.
To me, he's like Osa light. Like if you miss out on Osa and that's the kind of type you want, this is who you're targeting. So I think they're very similar stylistically, although Levi does obviously have the injury history as well.
Mm-hmm. So an option I'm pretty cool with is a step down in APY. Obviously, we're getting cheaper and cheaper as we go. So tiers 8.25 mil APY.
Yeah, and I worry about the potential return of his back injuries. Traditionally speaking, when somebody that size has back issues, they don't just go away. So 8.25 for this kind of potential, it's a worthy bet. But if he hurts his back again, like you're just kind of shit out of luck. So the upside here, 45 pressures, 3 sacks, 13 hits. That's a fantastic season. That's a season that we would kill for as a Chargers interior defensive lineman at this point.
Yeah.
But there is a good amount of risk here. So I went into this thinking like, oh, like Levi's, the third defensive tackle on PFS rankings. He's going to end up there for me. But I think there's probably a slight gap in terms of BJ versus Levi of how I would like feel about their potential signing for the Chargers. But I would totally get why you would sign Levi, right? Because the pass rush potential here, 23rd in ESPN's pressure rate, 18th in pass rush productivity, 25th in wins above replacement. That's a great season as a pass rusher. But the risk here is that back injury. So it's a little unfortunate for him.
Chargers did take, I don't believe this is why he didn't have a good rookie season, but they did take a chance with a Boygby who had spine and back injuries. Younger player, far less mileage, but
yeah. And 4th round pick versus $8.25 million.
Yeah, correct. Exactly.
So the last one here, this is a bit of an interesting one for me. This is if Puna Ford leaves. I'm not signing Puna Ford and DJ Jones because they're effectively the same player. So DJ Jones is basically your stereotypical run defense nose tackle. He's bigger than Puna Ford. He's a little bit more productive than Puna Ford when it comes to run stop percentage. He was actually fourth in the league in run stop percentage. I think he was 12th in total run stops, 41st in wins above replacement. So he's a run defense nose tackle, right? I looked up at his pass rush numbers, and he's basically right next to Tito Ogbonia in terms of pass rush win rate and pass rush productivity. So you would lose, the pass rush ability that Puna and Tier Tart, kind of gave the Chargers this past year. But you would, I think, at least upgrade in terms of the productivity as a run defender that DJ Jones can potentially give you.
Yeah. Are they wrong to go get DJ Jones? Absolutely not. Would I totally prefer Puna Ford? 100%.
Yeah, I'm right there with you.
Yeah.
9 million APY for DJ Jones after he just signed for $10 million APY that's a little rich for me, when they essentially could get the same kind of productivity out of Puna Ford and then more as a pass rusher. So I think there's a very, very good chance that Puna Ford is back.
Yeah.
If he does decide to leave, maybe he loves Seattle. I don't know. Maybe he wants to go get revenge on the Bills and sign there again. I don't know. Free agency is a really fickle thing, but DJ Jones is a fine replacement for him if you do lose him. For what it's worth, Jeremy Fowler did say at the end of the season that they have already discussed bringing him back to Denver. So of the players that are all on this list, the only one that I found actually had some information about returning to his team was DJ Jones. Granted, the Eagles season just ended 48 hours ago. But
yeah,
we'll see what happens. But DJ Jones, it does seem likely that he does return to Denver.
Yeah. Speaking of sort of Denver, we're getting to our tier 4 contributors and role players, guys that aren't going to break the bank by any means, and not even pricey starters or, kind of are paying you a lot starters. These are more so your contributors or flyers, if you will. The first one is Baron Browning, the edge rusher from the Cardinals, was traded to the Cardinals, of course, this past season. So he could return there. If a team trades for you, potentially you want to, repay the favor, I guess. And he found a solid, efficient role there with him. Or with them, has been on a per play basis pretty strong. And I think that the Chargers would be, and with this contract of 1 year, $6 million, I think the Chargers, like what they've done with many picks from signings from last year, bet on their guys, bet on Elston, bet on Minter, bet on strength and conditioning to make it work. And this year, unlike last year, I fully believe this group can do it. Like this defensive staff, I trust them to do whatever. So if they go with Browning, I get it. With that said, the injury history is insane. 2021, 3 injuries due to back spasms. Another guy with back issues. 2022, 2 games due to a hip injury. 2023, 7 games due to a knee injury. 2024, 4 weeks on IR with a foot injury. So back, hip, knee, foot. Basically covers most of it. So not great there. But on a per play basis, this past season, 13th in pass rush win rate, right behind Will Anderson. It would have been number 1 on the Chargers. Didn't play a ton, but on the season, very efficient. And so maybe the Chargers go after that. Very, very, very risky. But I do trust this group. I really do.
Yeah, and I think this is kind of a lower risk potential signing when you're only talking about 1 year, $6 million. I think you're talking about scenarios here where the Chargers bring back Khalil Mack. I think there is a chance they would prefer to just not have edge rusher be a draft priority for them. And maybe you bring back Khalil and then you go sign a Baron Browning or the guy who's next on this list who might be even cheaper, or probably is even cheaper. And then you would have Khalil, Thule, Bud, and a guy like Baron Browning. And those are your four guys. And I think that's a situation where Baron Browning, if he misses 2 or 3 games, you're like, it's not great. But, for the Cardinals, missing 3 games, that sucks because he's your best edge rusher. For the Chargers, that's not so bad. And you can just really kind of lean into him being that hyper efficient designated pass rusher type. And I think stylistically, I really want the Chargers to get this kind of player where he is your speed rusher. He is somebody who can give you some instant wins, which is what the Chargers don't really have at this current point in time. So I just watched Kyle Kernard from South Carolina. There are 4 or 5, speed rusher types the Chargers can get in the draft. And if they wanted to go do that, I would totally get it. But if they want to just knock this out of the way in free agency, I think Baron Browning would be an awesome signing as your 4th edge rusher, your 3rd DPR, and it would be awesome. I think that would be a great situation for him.
Yeah, because I wouldn't call Tuli a speed rusher. Max certainly not. Joey, I don't know if he can even do that at this point. And Dupree definitely not a speed rusher. So this would be something different flavor to your defense. I don't know if that means that they wouldn't love this kind of player then, but as you said, I would like to see that in this group.
Yeah. Okay. The last one here, I believe,
or two more, but we can
okay.
Roll through.
Joshua Uche, the edge rusher from the Chiefs/Patriots. He didn't really play a ton for the Chiefs. He was actually mostly like a healthy scratch after they traded for him, which must be nice to have a guy like this be a healthy scratch for you every single week. Previous contract was 1 year, $3 million. There was a good amount of buzz at this time last year that Uche would sign for, a multi-year, $15-16 million contract. And then he decided to stay in New England and signed basically for the minimum. And it was shocking. Like, people were like, what is going on here? Like, we went from he could sign anywhere to he signed back with New England for basically nothing. So really, really bizarre situation there. I don't know what happened. But to me, this is a guy who his stuff in New England shows somebody who should be making, $15 million a year. So I think, again, this is a bet on a low risk kind of contract. I mean, PFF is projecting 1 year, $4.5 million APY. I don't think he's going to return to the Chiefs. I mean, like, they were actively not playing him. So he's somebody that is going to be on the market. I think his efficiency numbers are fantastic. He's obviously a former Michigan Wolverine, so they have several connections to him. I think this is an easy sell, again, if they want to add, a DPR type in free agency.
Yeah, I'd have to look into more of why he wasn't playing for Kansas City. I feel bad for him because he's like, I'm going to return to, New England, and I believe in the team and the direction and all that sort of stuff. And then they start like 1-6 or 2-6, whatever it was, and they trade him. So yeah, kind of a bummer there. I guess, should take the money while you can get it, I suppose. But yeah, this is an easy sell for me to add to the Chargers. It was while he was a potential trade option. I want to say we covered him, or at least you covered him when there was at the trade deadline as a potential option. But
he might have gotten traded before I did that video, because I feel like he was traded pretty early in the year.
It might have been a free agent thing for us then. We might have discussed him as a free agent or something. I don't know. Anyway, I think we've discussed him several times as an option for the Chargers. So yeah, to me, it's an easy sell. If you bring him back, or not bring him back, if you bring him on board, I totally get it. 1 year, $4.5 million, easy sell for me.
Yeah, and again, the compensatory pick thing, surplus value, it's all, plays into what the Chargers want to do at free agency. You sign him for $4.5 million. He's a guy who was 22nd. Was that this year or last year?
22nd what?
In pass rush win rate?
Oh, this year.
Okay. So that's probably obviously mostly in New England, but
yeah,
he does that again. He gives you 7 or 8 sacks, maybe, that's probably a bit of a ceiling bet. And then he can go sign for that $15-16 million elsewhere. Or in a world where, Khalil decides to retire after next year and you feel good about Uche being around long term, you bring him back, right? Like, I think there's a lot of long-term upside here, even if he's not like a high-profile name at this point in time.
Yeah. Last one here is Jerron Reed, the defensive lineman from the Seattle Seahawks. A bit of a log jam in front of him. I think looking at their roster, we feel there's going to be some move made. Seems to be Draymond Jones. I do not believe it would be Williams. You're more than welcome to join the Chargers and send the Chargers Williams if they want.
Yeah.
But I think that will end up being Draymond Jones to make room for Jaron Reed. But if not, I'd be certainly for this. Again, another inexpensive player, 25th in pressure rate, 11th in pass rush productivity, 32nd in PFF's overall WAR, some scheme familiarity because he just played with McDonald. So going to Minter, there's some overlap there, of course. It did play next to Puna Ford as well for a year, so there's some chemistry there as well. 2024 was a bit of an outlier year, and then, as you put, like how much of an upgrade over Fox is he? Morgan Fox is going to be gone, so if they want to go with someone who gets the scheme a little bit more, I would imagine he's bigger than Morgan Fox because most of these defensive tackles are. But if they want to go with a pass rusher type, a little bit bigger, scheme familiarity, team familiarity, that'd be Jaron Reed if he becomes available.
Yeah, 48 pressures, 4 sacks, 10 hits this year. So again, very productive. Would be easily be one of the more productive seasons that the Chargers have had. The production outside of the 1 year he spent in Kansas City has generally been pretty good. He only had 28 pressures and 3 sacks that season for the Chiefs. Which how dare he? That's a horrible year. But in 2018, dude, he had 50 pressures and 11 sacks and 13 quarterback hits. Like this was a guy who at one point, looked like he was going to be one of the next guys. And, he's kind of settled into the mid 40s, 4 to 5 sacks ish a year. And there's a lot of value in that. I think there is an argument to be had that he should be higher on our list, but he's the contract value is certainly not as much as somebody like BJ Hill or Levi Onwuzurike, just because he's a little bit older. So I don't know what kind of ceiling there is here, but if the solution here is to bring back Puna and Tier Tart and you sign Jaron Reed and then you draft Derek Harmon or whoever, like we've talked about, like that's still a pretty significant upgrade for the Chargers on the defensive line. So again, a lot of options when a guy like Jaron Reed is like your worst case scenario. I think it shows a lot about where the Chargers can get some value in this defensive line class.
Yeah, not a bad group at all.
All right. We did not mention the ageless wonder Calais Campbell, who was in Baltimore with Jesse Minter. The last year Minter was in Baltimore, Calais Campbell was there. But we were kind of joking beforehand. Calais Campbell was drafted when both of us were in middle school. Like he has been in the NFL so long that PFF doesn't even have data from his rookie season. At some point, that man is going to not be great at football. So I don't know. It's again, kind of speaks to where this defensive line class is at in terms of free agency. Is he an option? I think sure. But he's probably earned the right to ring chase a little bit more. And I'm a little concerned about the age. Like I mentioned, he did play great for the Dolphins this year. But he is somebody I think at least worth mentioning.
39 pressures and 37 run stops at age 38 is insane. I think it's him versus Mercedes Lewis at this point, right? For the two oldest players.
Yep.
Lane's getting pretty close.
But Mercedes Lewis plays like 16 snaps a game.
right. And
he's awesome at those 16
He's awesome.
snaps.
Yeah, exactly. No, but Calais Campbell, I'm looking at the numbers. Like, okay, how many snaps did this guy really play? 616 last year, 712 the previous year. Crazy. He's logged. I got to find players who have logged more other than quarterbacks. I mean, he's almost at 13,000 career snaps. That is nuts.
That's insane. For a defensive tackle, that's crazy. He's never really hit a cliff either. Like there's been a decline. There 1 year in Jacksonville, he was like a defensive player of the year candidate. But at age 38 to have, like you mentioned, almost 40 pressures and almost 40 run stops, that's pretty crazy.
What's his price tag? I gotta look it up. I feel so bad for skipping over him. You told me the Chargers added a player who with those numbers, I go, heck yeah, who is he? But I don't know. Do you want to be the team that finds out finally?
PFF has 1 year, $3 million.
I don't know, man. Like for vibes, I think you got to go for it.
Like there's scheme familiarity. It's pretty good. Jason Peters was still on the Seahawks this year. I did not know that.
That's right.
That is insane. Again, offensive tackle this late into his career. So good shout out by Thomas Martinez there.
Jason Peters, age 43. Whew.
43-year-old offensive tackle, man. Keep collecting those checks, I guess.
What was his contract? This is just become an old who's old and what's their finances show. Jason Peters' contract was,
I can imagine.
They're not going to tell me. Oh,
well, if he was a practice squad guy. It was
$302,000.
Wow, that low. Okay.
Hey, man,
good for him.
Showing the practice squad.
Good for him. So we probably should have included Calais, and that's my bad. I should have put him on there, especially because there's so many connections to him. But
yeah, I remember when we were begging for Peters to be an option for the Chargers. So bad. At his age, like 39 season or 40 season, we're like, please go get Peters. And now it's, Slater and Alt. So not bad.
Yeah, not bad at all. All right, Tyler, any final thoughts on this defensive line group before we get to these 5 super chats and then we'll head out for tonight?
It's nice knowing they could completely miss on all of these guys and still walk into the best defensive line draft that I've seen.
Yeah, very good situation for them. Again, if they don't sign anybody besides bringing their guys back, I would get it because this draft class is so good. It's so good, man. Watching Kyle Kernard, I was peeking again at TJ Sanders, Walter Nolan. There's so many guys in this class, and you have nose tackles, you have hybrids, you have pass rushers. When I first heard Dane Brugler has 8 or 9 guys in his top 50, Daniel Jeremiah had a bunch, I was like, no way, this is defensive tackle we're talking about. There's gonna be 1 or 2 guys because that's kind of how it always is, but there's so many. I think I legit might end up with almost 20 in my top 50.
Yeah. So. I think, was it Daniel Jeremiah said he had 8 starter, or what was it? Draft. What was the word? Starter capable players in his draft class last year. And I'm going to sneeze.
Exact quote says, last year at this time, I had potential starter grades on 12 defensive tackles. This year, I have 24 of them. Ridiculous amount of depth at the position in this draft class. So yeah, pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, Calvin brings up I think it's Greg Zabel, right?
Greg Zabel is the North Dakota State offensive lineman.
Yeah, right. And I was watching Jamari Caldwell, the 3rd defensive tackle at Oregon, and apparently he gave Zabel some fits at the Senior Bowl. So just again, this group is just everybody's good. I don't know. We need a top 25. Seriously.
Yeah, the top 10 will not be long enough this year. So our defensive tackle episode will be much longer than it usually is. Usually we're there's 2 or 3 guys and the rest are just kind of whatever.
Yeah, I'm Tyler Shelvin, let's do it. Those days.
Who was the nose tackle from Cincinnati that we talked ourselves into last year, the year before? Jawan something.
Oh gosh. Oh, Jawan Briggs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He was a 7th round pick, I think.
Yeah. He was a late guy. Was never projected to go super early. And I was yeah, that guy can sing. And that was my big sell. He's such a singer. But he played towards the end of the year. So you know what? Hey,
yeah,
it's more than a Boygby played.
Sad. But yeah. All right, let's get to the super chats and we'll head out. Jake says that Zach Cohen, I don't know who that is, says alt helmets coming, Rams Australia 2026. Okay. The helmet situation, I definitely could see it. The Chargers ditched the royal blue this past season, which I think is a mistake. I love the royal blues, but I get it. You can't have all of them. So it does make sense that alternate helmets are coming. I think everybody has wanted this forever, but we have to remember that it takes a long time for NFL teams to do these kind of things. And the Chargers did just do a reband 5 years ago. So I think an alternate helmet makes sense. I think the Chargers organization has shown that they are going to continue to push the boundary when it comes to the aesthetics around the team. I mean, they completely overhauled their game day production unit this season, despite I think having an awesome game day production previously. So they're going to change things up when they feel like they need to. And if they added a new helmet this year, I would not be surprised at all.
Yeah, no, I think it's coming. I think it's going to happen the next couple of years for sure.
Yeah. We were talking about this a few weeks ago, I think, but I really want them to do a different road alternate. I am so sick of the white and yellow combination and meaningful games. Like it's their worst combination by far. So I would love to see some kind of road alternate. Everybody wants the all navy, and I get it, but they can't wear that on the road. So I would like to see them explore different options there, in my opinion. As far as Rams Australia 2026, I kind of doubt they would make both LA teams do that. And there's been a lot of buzz that the Chargers are going to play an international game this year. Obviously, there's been some rumors from the Brazil media, and Alex pointed this out, that they are going to be a Brazil team this year. They do have away game scheduled for two teams playing in Europe, obviously the Jaguars and the in London, as well as the Dolphins, who are hosting the Spain game. So I think there's a very, very good chance the Chargers play an international game this year. And next year is probably not it. So they're not really a team that gets a ton of international opportunities, but it sounds like this year will be one.
Yeah. 50-50 if I'm going.
Wow. All right. I am 0% going. Andrew Murray says, love Milton Williams, but does a seemingly deep defensive line draft disincentivize the Chargers and others from chasing high-priced linemen in free agency?
Does deep chasing high-priced linemen in free agency? I don't know. What typically has been the learning curve for defensive tackles in the NFL?
Usually is like 2 years.
So I don't know. I don't think it turns anybody off or the Chargers off from getting a high priced. They might do it out of overall philosophy and not go get the most expensive guy, but I don't think it'll prevent them from going after him.
No, I think, does it prevent a team from paying somebody like BJ Hill? I think that is a conversation. To me, somebody like Milton Williams, if he hits the market, he's somebody who every team should be after. Like, I think defensive tackle has become a premium position at this point, and every team outside of like 3 or 4 teams, including Philadelphia, are like, yeah, we don't need a 65 pressure guy at defensive tackle. Like, we're good. So I think if Milton hits the market, I think he's one of the 3 or 4 guys who signs the fastest. I think he signs to a huge contract.
Yep.
I think he has 15 teams calling him. So Milton Williams to me is a no-brainer. I think the draft would disincentivize the other guys who we talked about after Milton and Osa.
Yeah, that's fair.
Again, we referenced this earlier, but Dark Samus, we appreciate you, man. The commitment to super chats with offensive linemen, interior offensive linemen, college prospects, truly is awesome. We love to see it.
Yep. Still not there on the offensive line, thankfully, because the Chargers have tackle short up. So I have to watch that. But I've just been full speed ahead on interior defensive line, which reminds me of last year and interior offensive line or the year before with tight end.
Yeah, I can't stop watching defensive linemen in general, man. Like, I've watched 16 edge rushers at this point, and I'm just like, yeah, give me more. It's a great edge rusher class too.
Yeah, it's a ton of fun. It's genuinely been a ton of fun. I don't know where they got all these guys from, but I've never seen so many 340-pound individuals pull spin moves on their tackles. So
insane. Blake says not defensive line related, but what round for running back Scadaboo? ?
For the Chargers specifically, I think they would have to wait till the 3rd round. I think he'll be in between both of their picks. I think their 2nd round pick is maybe a bit early. We'll see who's there. If you're desperate for a running back, he might be the best available. But I just, we talk about this defensive line class. If it's him or let's say Harmon's there, sorry, I got to go Harmon, all day long on a lot of these guys. So I think for the Chargers 3rd round pick, I don't know. I could see him going end of 2nd, but I don't know. He'd have to find the right team to want to go get him.
So you've watched him then?
Yeah. He's going to be like a late 2nd sort of guy, I think.
Yeah, his missed tackles forced percentage is like right there with some of the best prospects we've ever seen. but I do think there are some athletic concerns in terms of his top end speed and his agility and things like that. But he's the kind of running back I could see Jim Harbaugh loving. I
Totally.
agree with you. I would not take a running back at 55 over, a premium position. And hypothetically speaking, let's say the Chargers take Colston Loveland in the first round. There's zero chance I'm taking a running back in the second round. I have to pivot to defense in that scenario. So you probably got to spend 55 on him if you want him. And I think the Chargers are probably leaning more towards, fourth round, fifth round. And for them, it's a really good running back class. But, there's a good chance J.K. Dobbins is back. Maybe they talk themselves into Gus Edwards still being a functional running back, which I think would be a mistake. But, they love Gus. They have a lot of history with Gus. So there's a chance they just pass on running back altogether and just say, hey, we're going to run it back with the same room from last year. We didn't really see Kamani Vidal all that much. We know Hassan Haskins can pass protect his butt off and play special teams. So there's at least a decent chance they don't add anybody, which I do think is a mistake, to be clear. But that scenario does exist, I think.
Yeah. And sorry, Ronnie, I do not believe running back is a premium position. Not that it's not important. That doesn't mean running back is not important, but I do not believe it is a premium position.
The NFL doesn't believe it's a premium position.
Yeah, no, I agree there. Yeah, a great final piece to be a big time force multiplier for your team.
Yeah,
but you need the pieces first, and right now they need at least a center and a guard before running back.
Yeah, I mean Saquon Barkley just had a 2,000-yard season, and the NFL said $12 million, which is less than Gabe Davis makes in Jacksonville. So,
my God,
it is not a premium position. Like I wish it were. I love running backs. Like running backs are so fun to watch. LT is obviously a huge reason why I'm a Chargers fan. He's probably the main reason. But the NFL does not value running back that way.
Yeah, and it's one of those ones where you can find that guy later on. I mean, Tyron Tracy was a converted receiver to running back. Good prospect, had 1,000 yards. Who else had 1,000 yards this year as a rookie? There was somebody else.
Bucky Irving.
Oh yeah, Bucky Irving. Yeah, what a good year. Sorry, not 1,000 for Tracy, but 1,000 total yards. You can find these guys.
Super fun though.
Yeah, totally.
Nicholas Petrilli wants to know, emotions out of it, do you feel like Philip Rivers is a first ballot Hall of Famer?
I think we discussed this on the previous show. I do not, unfortunately.
No, I think he gets in at some point, but I do not see him as a first ballot Hall of Famer. I think, unfortunately for him, the lack of postseason success matters a lot. And, I think his conversation is different than Eli's, because I think you can make a legit argument that at multiple seasons of his career, he was a top 3 or 4 quarterback in the league. He is a guy who received MVP consideration. He is a guy who has all-pro nominations, Pro Bowl nominations, all that stuff. But the lack of postseason success is unfortunately going to keep him. He's probably like a third ballot kind of guy, just based off of like how other players of his caliber have been treated. But Eli Manning, for everything I think about him, he does have the 2 Super Bowls, 2 of the biggest games of this era, and he wasn't a first ballot Hall of Famer. Luke Kuechly was not a first ballot Hall of Famer, and he played 8 seasons in the NFL. He was an All-Pro 7 times. And the other season he wasn't an All-Pro, he was Defensive Rookie of the Year. That guy was not a first ballot Hall of Famer. So that's
crazy.
It's becoming more and more difficult to be a first ballot Hall of Famer. Like, you have to be
Antonio Gates.
Hello. Yeah. Yes. We all know this. So you have to be multiple Super Bowls, unequivocally one of the best players of your position in your era. And unfortunately for Philip Rivers, right, like he's just always going to be compared to Tom Brady and Peyton Manning and Drew Brees and Ben Roethlisberger and all the Aaron Rodgers. And so it's unfortunately probably more of a third ballot, fourth ballot kind of guy. But I do think he gets in at some point.
Yeah. I think this is maybe more of the conversation. Like, is Ben Roethlisberger, of the 3 of them, kind of feel like he might have the best shot?
Yeah, because he would have the best combination of the high-end individual numbers and awards, and he won a Super Bowl. So of the 3 from that class, I would probably agree that Big Ben has the best chance to be first ballot.
Yeah.
Unfortunately. Last question here says, "What from Lucas? What would the price tag for Devontae Adams be? Should we do it?"
Oh, what should the price tag be? What is his current contract? It's really expensive, isn't it? 30
Yeah,
something million?
his cap number is 38 million. His APY I think is 28. There's no chance the Jets are keeping him, and I don't think any teams are really going to trade for him. So I think this is a very obvious cut for what it's worth. I don't think you have to trade for him. Although you could beat the market and trade for him if you wanted to, but then you have to inherit that horrible contract.
Yeah, no, thank you. Unless Archie's willing to make a deal. But and I'll facilitate. We'll make it work.
Yeah.
But okay, so free agent, Higgins or Adams?
Higgins, but
okay.
You know, and Thomas points out, good thing he would not count against the compensatory pick formula for the Chargers because he would be a cut.
I don't think Devontae said he doesn't want to play for the Chargers. He just didn't like the Pop-Tart joke.
Yeah. He didn't like the Pop-Tart.
$25 million can solve a lot of problems.
Yeah, $25 million, Jim Harbaugh, Justin Herbert.
Yeah.
Brand new training facility. You get to be back in California, which he's already told everybody he wants to be back on the West Coast. So,
yeah.
I don't know. Like, I can't imagine him returning to the Raiders at this point.
Not unless Rodgers becomes a Raider.
True. But then, if you're Devontae Adams, like, how do you get back into that locker room and be like, hey, guys, I'm back. I said, fuck all you last year, but I'm back.
I don't know. Maybe they say they get it. But yeah, I just hold up a picture of Aiden O'Connell, a picture of Aaron Rodgers doing whatever darkness retreat he does. Then just in the middle, hold up Justin Herbert.
Yeah.
I'll make it work.
Yeah. In terms of contract, I feel like a 2-year, $50 million contract, so 25 APY is fair for him. I think that would put him, after T and Jamar Chase signed their new deals, which we got a lot of flack when we talked about Jamar Chase getting $40 million per year. You know who said that he was going to do that? Adam Schefter. So whoever was mad at us for that, there you go. Adam Schefter said it, so that's happening.
And I think the furthest off he would have been was like 37 million. So it's like, you know.
Yeah. So 25 per year for Devontae Adams to me feels fair. That would put him at like wide receiver 13, 14 after those two guys signed their new deals. And that feels about right. Like, a player in his mid 30s, coming off of his worst season, a very productive season, where he forced a trade and all that stuff. I feel like 25 per year is fair. And then, like Thomas points out, he wouldn't count against the compensatory pick, which we know is Joe Ortiz's music.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So should the Chargers do it? I think yes. And I think the way that Chargers fans have been talking about him is kind of crazy to me recently.
Yeah. Yeah. It's been a real interesting offseason because they have all this money and the Chargers fans have been begging for a receiver. There's nobody really at their spot in the draft at 22. But then it's like, okay, how about Higgins? No, not that one. Okay, how about Adams? No, not that one. Okay, how about Godwin? No, not that one. It's like, I don't know what we want.
They want Keenan back.
Hey, I kind of do too, but not really. But yes.
Yeah, but ranking him over Devontae Adams is insane.
No comment.
So yeah, I don't know. As somebody points out, who is this? Chargers. Nick says that the Chargers aren't going to chase an expensive wide receiver. It would not surprise me one bit if the solution for the wide receiver position is like, Hollywood Brown and Matt Collins and then a draft pick. Like it just kind of fits with what this. It just kind of fits like what this team wants to do. They're going to pay defensive linemen. They're going to go pay an offensive lineman, and then they'll make it work at receiver. It just kind of checks out with how I think that they are going to operate. But I do also want them to invest in a wide receiver, and somebody like Devontae Adams to me makes a ton of sense. Chris Godwin makes a ton of sense. Yeah. I think even Darius Slayton makes a ton of sense. So, but we'll see.
Yeah,
short weeks away.
You get your 7 to 8 mid-tier guys, and get ready to buy your Juwan Johnson jerseys, everyone.
Hey man, I would be very happy with that signing though.
Fits pretty well.
All right. As Trevor Scott points out, Matt Collins is totally a horrible guy. He really is. Just vibes would be fantastic. And, I think the Chargers can. I mean, he's a vet minimum guy, basically. So the Chargers can afford to make that happen, regardless of who they sign elsewhere. All right. That is going to do it for us tonight. Appreciate you guys for tuning into the chat. For those of you who are listening to this on replay, please make sure you leave us a rating, review, comment. All that good stuff does truly help the show. We are going to dive into the opposite side of the football on Thursday. We're going to be talking about offensive linemen. So I know usually people don't love listening about offensive line stuff, but the Chargers desperately need to upgrade their interior offensive line, and we will have you guys covered on Thursday. And again, for the Chargers, luckily that is a position that I think is pretty well stocked in terms of good players. So excited to dive into that. Obviously, that is my bag, and I can't wait to do it. So this has been another episode of the Guilty as Charged podcast. We'll see you guys on Thursday. As always, Bolts up.